For the first time in a long time, we have real Xbox sales data. During the past, 10 days or so, tons of information from Camp Microsoft has been spilling out onto the internet because of their epic court battle in Microsoft versus FTC. A ton of information about who they want to buy, how they buy companies, how they're thinking about buying companies, their strategy, and everything in between. So when you read the headline that Microsoft accidentally leaks all their console sales data, you would think that it would be coming from these court documents. However, my friends, that is not the case. And I can't really actually remember the last time we got this much sales data directly from Microsoft that emphasizes how well or not well they're doing when it comes to console sales. So let's just throw the data up on the screen here. Now, this comes from an ID at Xbox, Microsoft's big event in Brazil. And I got to tell you, I bet somebody gets in trouble for some of this because I can't imagine that this passed like corporate marketing approval, because very clear as day at an official Microsoft event, they are on stage saying that they have 21 million plus, so there could be some wiggle room in there, Xbox Series S and X consoles that have been sold. Now, we don't know over what timeline. Obviously, we know from when they went on sale, but is this up through the end of the year, the end of the fiscal year? We don't quite know the timeline, so the number could be higher. We don't know by how many millions or hundreds of thousands, but either way, hey, we have an official number. Now, what's interesting about this is that Sony's last reported official number was 38.4. And I said time and time again, and you sound like a broken record, that if Microsoft beats the 2-to-1 ratio, then they're probably coming out ahead, which they are. Now, they're about 17.5-ish million behind Sony, something like that. Maybe 18 million, somewhere around that number. So they're not quite at half, which actually means Microsoft has clawed back a little bit of market share, but not a ton. However, we can couple this with some data that was presented during the FTC case when it comes to Minecraft. Microsoft said that there are twice as many people on PlayStation playing Minecraft as there are on Xbox, which again is that 2-to-1 ratio. However, on the Nintendo Switch, it's like 4-to-1. And so just sort of keeping that in perspective here. And so you can see also 79 million combined Xbox Series 1, X, and S's. So not a math whiz, but if you take 80 and you minus 20 and you get about 60, somewhere around the 60 million mark is how many consoles were sold in the last generation. And so, yeah. And then, of course, the number at the bottom there, 48% of Series S players are new to Xbox. We have seen Microsoft tout similar numbers, which again sort of lends to the authenticity that this is legitimate. Now, I don't know why it wouldn't be legitimate. This is an official Microsoft event. This is from an official Microsoft, a gaming event for that matter. So moving on here, there is more information, which again is just awesome to finally see that, it's out in the public. So Microsoft says there are 248, or we'll just say 249 active Windows gaming PCs. That's a huge number. That is a huge number. Now keep in mind that the intention of this event is to drum up interest for building for the Xbox platform, which is on console and on PC. And so interesting that's a huge number that blows everything out of the water from the PlayStation platform. It's probably a good thing these numbers didn't come out during the FTC, because FTC probably should have latched onto that, because if you remember in the closing arguments, the judge actually asked the question or alluded to why aren't gaming PCs considered part of the overall market for where Microsoft should be allowed to buy Activision and that whole thing. So 248, and then there's 15.6 million monthly active Xbox users. Woo! And then Microsoft says there are 168 million monthly Windows Store visits. That's a number that I take with a grain of salt, because how many? First off, it says visitors. It doesn't say unique visitors. So every time somebody opens that, right, that's multiple visits per month. So there's not 168 million people going there, and a 3% year-over-year increase in paid unique users. I'm guessing that means sales transactions. There's a 3% growth. And 85 markets for PC Game Pass, and you can read the other numbers there. I just think it's fantastic that we are finally starting to see this. So the other reason why I throw this up there were a bunch of slides, by the way, and credit to Lucas Taves, at Lucas Taves, I believe, on the Twitters, who posted all these images from this event, because 400 console games. The reason why I point that one out is because Microsoft in their marketing material, and I believe it's sort of like a psychological thing, they say over 100 games. That is the terminology they like to use because it just sounds big. When over 400 games, I don't know, for whatever reason, they've gone with the over 100 games that you can play, and that just tends to work better in marketing. So then you got 300 plus PC games, and then 300 plus for streaming. Again, just really diving into the data that Microsoft is presenting. Now, this one might give some of you little squeegees, myself included, because during the presentation, Microsoft is talking about, hey, developers, how are you going to make money? And while there's premium sales, there's in-game sales, I think it's the in-game advertising is going to catch a lot of headlines. I don't want to say don't worry about this too much, because I don't think you should think that this is like the YouTube pre-roll ads or something like that, or interstitials or something like that. I suspect that this is more of like, hey, there's a billboard in a game, you can throw an ad in there, and or something like that. Would be my guess based on the information here that is presented. Obviously, I was not at this event because it took place in Brazil, and who would think at an ID Xbox event in Brazil that they would just dish the numbers of how many consoles have been sold? It'll be curious to see, like, is Microsoft ever going to try to comment on this number, say anything? But again, I suspect that someone's going to get in a lot of hot water because this went through probably multiple layers of approval locally. I don't think it made it back to corporate would be my guess. Although it is all in English, so maybe they grabbed it from some other event and maybe I'm just completely wrong. But again, when Microsoft takes the stage and Microsoft talks about console sales numbers, I doubt that they're using some third-party estimate. It would make sense that they're using the, touching on the source. So at 21 million consoles sold, assuming that's to date, the question becomes, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Now, we already know that the Xbox Series X was artificially limited, not because they couldn't get the chips off the line, although they did say that there was a yield problem, but Microsoft opted to put those chips into the game servers for cloud gaming, and that may have impacted sales in some of it. However, on the Sony side, where there's 38-ish million, something like that, they also had constraints. So you could kind of weigh your odds about how you think this is. I would love a more detailed breakdown of how many Series X have been sold and how many Series S, because Microsoft likes to tout that the Series S is doing pretty darn well. Obviously, with that lower price point, they're attracting more people into the door, 48%, something like that on the Series S side. And I suspect that the X number is actually kind of low. I bet it. If I had to guess from the hip, I bet it's like 5-6 million. I could be completely wrong. Typical gamers would love the higher end, but if you're attracting net new audience, they're going to come from the bottom and they're going to come in that Series S door would be the likely expectation from a little bit of market analysis. And I don't know if we've ever heard that 248 million number like that. I need to look up, because I think this is like a huge data dump, and it allows us to sort of plot some growth here over time as Microsoft continues to deal more information. Microsoft tells us that there's over 1 billion Windows PCs. So, and the other question too is, on a chart like this, what actually qualifies as a gaming PC? I think that is also, is it a computer that has like a dedicated GPU, right? They're not using onboard or integrated. It has an actual graphics card. Is that the qualifier? We don't quite know how Microsoft carves that sort of information out, but it doesn't really matter. So there you go. There's your data drop that's not FTC related, although we got a little bit of smidgen of FTC. So we'll see. We'll see if Microsoft tries to claw back any of these numbers. I doubt that they will. They're just likely going to move on, not acknowledge it. But what you should do is keep it subscribed here, because the only BS on this channel is me.